So 16 years of buying gold now, was it worth it? Yeah, absolutely. 95, maybe 94% of the time, but who's counting? So we're going to take a look back in this one. Hopefully that will give us some kind of idea of what's ahead. Now there's historical performance that I can give you for gold, and then there are my own plans. Now some of those plans, they worked out. Some of them did not, and we just need to say it. This is not financial advice. It never is. Once in a while we're going to talk about money in a roundabout way, but I can't think of anyone covering precious metals who's out there giving good, solid financial advice. Let's just keep that in mind. What I can give, though, is the experience of buying gold and silver for 16 years now, what I've learned, and whether it's been worth it. So let's just cut straight to it. From a value perspective, the gold that I have purchased has increased in value enough to stay well ahead of inflation. We can see here the price when I started buying was around $816. Silver was $13. We'll come back to that. So from a price appreciation perspective, there's just no question it's been worth it. But hopefully there's more to this whole thing than simply staying ahead of inflation, because there are a lot of ways to do that. And before we get too far into this, I should say SD Bullion's a channel sponsor. That's why I picked this chart. They're a great option for buying gold and silver online. You can find them at sdbullion.com. So back to the price. The price of gold in mid-2008 is just a small part of this story. We can see a lot has happened in between then and now. And of course, I didn't buy everything I have back in 2008. And you can see from the chart a run-up in 2011. You can see a fall in 2013, and I stopped buying in that run-up. I picked up again in late 2013. And it's not from any real knowledge I had at the time. I just felt like gold was getting too expensive. And then in 2013, when it dropped, I was aware that it was significant. Now, the reason that I bring that up is that a lot of people will give the advice to simply average in, just keep buying. It's going to average out. And that's true, but what I learned is that there are points where an asset is going to get too hot. It doesn't hurt to sit that time out. And there are points when it feels like you might want to come back in, times that you might want to speed up. Now, nobody can predict the future path for price, but paying attention to past is going to give you some contextual clues. 2011 felt like too many people were piling on regardless of price. You could see the price shooting up. 2013, it went the other way, and it was very clear when we saw a 30% drop in price. Now, a lot of that was instinct. And instinct, of course, is not always going to be right. But 16 years in, it's easier to tell where instinct is going to be helpful, and it's definitely a lot more clear what gold is best at. In 2008, I saw this stuff as a little bit of a mystery device. Some people said it was a good hedge, some said it was the golden ticket, and it's just really hard to know who's right about what. I find the best way to get a feel for an asset or anything really is to just buy some yourself and hold it for a little bit. I think Mark Twain did a good job explaining it. A man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way. So in 2008, that's what I was doing. I bought a few gold coins at a time when we all know real estate wasn't looking good. And after hearing some stories of gold's value as a hedge or an emergency prep, depending on who you listen to, I thought that I needed to buy some to see for myself. And I didn't go off the deep end. I didn't buy everything I could, but I did get sucked in a little bit. I bought some 1-ounce coins really before I knew what my plan was. Now, you're not here for that part of the story, but I spent way too much time falling down the rabbit hole, all the reasons I should have it, without really knowing what to do with it. So we need to get a definition or two in here. Some people buy gold as savings, some buy it as speculation, some collect it. Now, when I started buying 16 years ago, I didn't see the distinction. That took me a few years. Now, I mentioned buying as savings a lot here. So beginning in 2013, I was setting aside around $350 every month to buy a 1/4 ounce Eagle. I did that for 8 years, and that was savings. I can look at what I bought. I can compare it to the performance of other savings devices, just high interest savings accounts or bond yields. Gold still won, even after premiums. So I could have stopped. I could have sold it all. I would have come out ahead. A few things to mention here. First, I wasn't collecting until recently. I wasn't speculating on much. Because I was buying gold with money that I'd been wasting in various ways, I was effectively buying without taking from any other need. I wasn't creating debt. I wasn't sapping investment capital. I was just rerouting wandering cash. And I've talked about that a lot here. I'm not going to repeat it, but because I was commandeering cash that I'd been wasting on subscriptions or eating out or random indiscretions, there's no reason to compare it to anything other than savings. I could have dropped all of that in a savings account as well, but I wouldn't have. Wasting money is just more fun than saving it. At least it is for me. That was before I started buying gold, but I found out that gold is fun too. And where I've lost with gold, if that's a thing, is when I bought collectible gold and treated it as savings. So collectible gold is hit or miss. You need to remember that. I could have come out ahead if I'd picked up more of these 2009 ultra high relief double eagles at the time of release, but I would have had to flip them to say that. Now instead, I bought them at a premium and I haven't done anything with it. It just sits beside standard gold bullion. So that is collecting without a plan. Has that been worth it? Well, I bought that particular coin for $2,500. I could probably sell it using normal methods outside of this YouTube channel, but I would have to do it privately. It wouldn't be easy. If I was to take this coin into my local shop today, they'd probably give me $2,100 for it. Now, I have a graded version of the coin that would do a lot better, but that purchase was a little bit more intentional. That doesn't mean that you can't profit buying collectible gold, that you can't multiply your upside. But if we're talking about upside, if we're talking about profit, we're speculating, we're not saving. So this 2021 American Liberty high relief Mustang cost me $2,715. That's when I bought it a few years ago. And you can find them on eBay today for $5,000 and up. So my only mistake was not buying more of them. I knew that it was special at the time. I should have bought 2 more. So buying collectible gold, it's going to be hit or miss. I think this one is going to be another hit, but I'm not buying this kind of gold to flip it. I'm just showing this as another sidetrack. This is a high relief lunar, by the way. This is not about saving, but I've always been clear on that. Now, the thing that comes up in the comment section here a lot more than it should is just think if you would have bought Apple instead or Bitcoin instead. Well, just think if I would have known the winning lottery numbers instead. Now, none of that makes any sense if you're buying gold as savings. It's just not a valid comparison. So for 16 years, that's what I've been doing. There's no question that that was worth it. So if you're coming into this whole thing wondering if buying gold is worth it, whether it'll be worth it to you, it depends on how you see it. So the collecting that I've been doing, I'm ahead of. But if I was doing this for profit, that's where I'm getting into comparisons to speculative investments like Apple, like Bitcoin, or some kind of fad collectible, even something like Pokemon. That was hot for a few years. As soon as I start looking at gold as an investment, well, it doesn't matter if it's quick flip or a long-term cash multiplier. I have to start comparing it to other things. So the answer then has to change a little bit. The answer then is it depends. So like I said, know why you're buying it, plan accordingly. For me, buying and holding gold has definitely been worth it. However I want to look at it. It has outpaced inflation. It's outpaced savings yields, bond yields, even certain market index. It just depends on the time frames. It has not outpaced my investments in Apple, my investments in certain stocks, and even some of my shots at the internet fund money. So the important part for me was just knowing what I was buying at the outset. Gold is savings to me. I'm rarely collecting it. And when I am, I think of it differently. So gold as savings has made great sense. It's proven to be a great model. It's definitely been worth it. Gold as an investment, well, I couldn't say because I'm not a financial advisor. So I'm just going to give you a few numbers here. I was saving regularly for 8 of those 16 years. And 2 of those years I took off entirely, just held what I'd already accumulated. So if I was to look at the first 10 years, actually, let's call it 11, my average cost was $1,200. Any of my comments I've made up to this point looked at the total. So if I'm saying I'm ahead, that was ahead for everything I've ever bought. Now, if I look at 2020 through today, I have to see that a little bit differently. The world was different. I was buying different. Everything's changed. Now, I'm still ahead, but not nearly as much. And the reason that I'm breaking this out is if I was to look at any, say, 2-year window of time, even 1 year window of time, whatever, I wouldn't be nearly as far ahead. Gold is gaining pretty aggressively lately, but we have to account for premiums and some fun purchases. Yeah, some of those collectible swings. The reason I'm pointing that out is that this is a 16-year period of time. That's a long time. And if I'm going to tell you whether or not it's been worth it, I should probably explain I'm looking at the whole picture. If we wanted to look at a year here or there, it's going to change the story. And some people will love to point that out in the comments. The only way that that should be relevant to you is if you're coming into this thinking that you're going to flip inside of a year or two. So let's call it good there. If you're new to gold, the best advice I'd give is just take it easy. Don't believe everything you hear. If you think of gold as a savings model, I think you're coming into it the right way. It shouldn't be speculative. Now, if you're not new to gold, drop a comment with some of the things that you've learned, because I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface here. So let us know. And then while you're there, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.